Stop for just 1 second. The phone in your hand right now, the breakfast you had this morning, the bed you slept in last night. All of it exists because someone, thousands of years ago, made a decision that looked completely insane at the time. But that is not the real question. The real question is this. Just 200 years ago, if you got a fever, if something inside you started breaking down, if your child was crying through the night and you could not figure out why, where would you go? There was no hospital. There was no antibiotic, there was no x-ray, there was just you, your pain, and a world that did not yet know that germs existed. And the people living in that world were not just surviving, they were doing things that still make modern scientists stop and stare. But here's what I'm gonna tell you at the very end of this video. The single biggest medical accident in human history, a mistake that should never have happened, and that one mistake saved over 1 billion lives. First, let us go back to where everything started. Picture the world 5,000 years ago. Mesopotamia, the land that is now Iraq. These people were surprisingly advanced. They had cities, trade routes, written legal codes. But when someone got sick, they had one firm belief. Illness was a supernatural attack. A bad spirit or an angry god had entered your body and was destroying it from the inside. So what was the solution? A man would come. He was called an ashipu. He was a professional exorcist. His job was to remove the spirit from your body. He performed rituals, recited specific chants, and alongside all of that, he gave you herbs. Now you might be thinking, okay, the rituals were nonsense, and you would be right, but the herbs, researchers tested them. Willow bark, which they prescribe for pain, contains salicin. Salicin is the exact compound that aspirin is made from. Garlic, which they used for infections, is genuinely antimicrobial. Modern labs have confirmed this. Honey, which they applied to wounds, contains hydrogen peroxide, which kills bacteria and actively promotes healing. These people believed completely in a supernatural explanation, but their treatments were working in the real world. And this is a pattern that repeats across the entire history of medicine. Wrong reason, right result. Now move forward to ancient Egypt, and this is where things get genuinely interesting. The Egyptians had medical papyri, written medical records. The Ebers Papyrus, dating to roughly 1550 BC, contains over 700 different remedies. These were organized, serious, practiced physicians. Some of their treatments are surprisingly logical, and some of them will make you put your drink down. Their treatment for baldness was a mixture of hippopotamus fat, crocodile fat, and snake fat applied directly to the scalp. For infections, they regularly used moldy bread, and for certain severe conditions, they used human excrement. Yes, exactly what you are thinking, but wait, stay with me on the moldy bread. Researchers eventually discovered that specific molds contain penicillin. The Egyptians had absolutely no idea what they were doing at a biological level. They were simply observing that wounds treated with moldy bread sometimes got better. They did not understand the mechanism. They recorded the result. They were observing 3,000 years ago, something that science would not formally prove until 1928. Think about that. 3,000 years. Now let us talk about the man history calls the father of medicine, Hippocrates, Greece, 460 BC. And his real story is not what you were taught in school. He gave medicine a revolutionary idea. He said illness is not supernatural. It has natural causes. Something inside the body goes out of balance, and you fix it by restoring the balance. This sounds so reasonable, so modern, so logical. But what was his actual theory? 4 humors. He said the body contains 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. When they are balanced, you are healthy. When the balance breaks, you get sick. And the treatment? Restore the balance. If he thought you had too much blood, he removed blood. Bloodletting. They cut open veins, attached leeches, performed cupping, real blood, drained out of real patients. And this one man's theory became the medical standard for 1,500 years. From ancient Greece through the Roman Empire through medieval Europe. Nobody seriously challenged it for 15 centuries. Now, I want to tell you about a specific person, a real man, a real death. December 1799, Virginia, America. George Washington fell ill. A throat infection. His doctors, the best doctors available in the entire country at that time, immediately began bloodletting. On the first day, they removed roughly 40% of his blood. He did not improve, so they removed more. 2 days later, George Washington was dead. Historians still debate whether the infection killed him or whether his own doctors did. A man who survived a revolutionary war. A man who stood on battlefields while people died around him. A man who became the first president of the United States. He could not survive 2 days in his own bedroom with his own doctors. And these were not incompetent people. This was the state of the art. But here is where the story changes completely. While Europe was sinking into the Dark Ages, while libraries were burning and knowledge was being lost, Somewhere else, an entirely different world was flourishing, the Islamic Golden Age. Ibn Sina, born 980 AD in Persia. This man wrote a book, Al-Qanun fil Tib, the Canon of Medicine. This single book was used as the primary medical textbook in European universities for 600 years. Not 60 years, 600 years. He described quarantine before Europe had any concept of contagious disease. He introduced systematic clinical observation. He argued that mental illness deserved the same serious treatment as physical illness, an idea Europe would not widely accept for centuries after him, and even then, people dismissed him. So that was the world. Herbs and rituals, bloodletting, and brilliant theories. Wrong reasons producing right results. Centuries of accumulated knowledge sitting alongside centuries of catastrophic mistakes, all moving forward together. And now the accident, the one I promised you at the beginning. September 1928. London, Alexander Fleming, a Scottish bacteriologist, returned to his lab after a summer vacation. Before he left, he had made a careless mistake. He left a petri dish uncovered. He simply forgot to put the lid on. When he came back, he found the dish had grown a blue-green mold, Penicillium notatum, and around that mold, there was a clear ring, a perfect empty circle where the bacteria had been. The mold had killed the bacteria. Any other scientist would have thrown out a contaminated dish. Fleming stopped. He looked at it for a long moment, and he thought, what exactly is happening here? The compound the mold was producing was penicillin. In World War II, this single discovery saved an estimated 12 to 15% of Allied soldiers who would otherwise have died from infected wounds. Minor cuts that previously led to fatal sepsis became treatable. Pneumonia, which had been essentially a death sentence for centuries, became curable. One man forgot to put a lid on a dish, and over 1 billion lives were saved because of that oversight. Now I need you to really sit with something. We think we are at the peak. We have MRI machines and gene therapy. We are months away from personalized cancer vaccines. We genuinely believe that now, finally, we understand. But that is exactly what Washington's doctors believed. That is exactly what Hippocrates' followers believed for 1,500 years. So here's the question that genuinely keeps me up at night, and I want your honest answer. Will modern medicine, the treatments we use today, the assumptions we currently hold, look just as barbaric to people 500 years from now as bloodletting looks to us today? Are we fundamentally on the right track? Or are we right now doing things that future generations will look back on and say, what were they thinking? I genuinely want to know what you think. Leave your answer in the comments. There is no correct answer here. This is one of those questions where your instinct tells you more about how you see the world than any textbook ever could. And if you want to win a brand new iPhone, do 3 things right now. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and drop your honest answer in the comments. I am tracking every single entry personally, and I will notify the winner directly. But before you go, one last thought. That Mesopotamian healer 5,000 years ago, the one chanting over a patient while handing them willow bark, was not that different from Alexander Fleming. Both were observing, both were trying, both were working with the best understanding their time allowed them. The history of medicine is not a story about the day humanity suddenly became smart. It is a story of wrong answers slowly pointing toward right questions. Every mistake revealed something. Every accident taught something. Every person who stopped in front of another person's pain and said, let me try to help, is part of this story, and that story is still happening right now. You are part of it simply because you are here, because thousands of years of mistakes and discoveries and accidents and stubborn, curious people built the world you are sitting in at this exact moment. This is not just the history of medicine. This is your history.